All right, in this video, we are going to go through underwriting. So you're ready to start a policy. You ask, what are the next steps, IBC Global? I want to start this high cash value life insurance policy. Underwriting, part one. We broke this up into two parts. We're going to go through some more information on this on the next video as well. But the first step is our internal questionnaire. We can send this to you via email, and we do have an electronic questionnaire and then also a PDF version as well. Most people elect the electronic version. When you complete it, this will collect just about all of the information, 90 to 100% of the information needed to complete a formal application with the insurance company you've chosen. Perhaps you've selected multiple companies. Now, I will state that the questionnaire does not always collect all of the necessary information if additional information is needed. Your primary agent or our our case management department will reach out to you in order to obtain the necessary information to populate that application. So our case management department does keep everything very confidential. They facilitate all of the applications, coordinate all of the back and forth with the different insurance companies that we work with, and really ensure that your process goes as smoothly as possible. Now, once you receive that application, you'll be able to e-sign it. In most cases, there are some rare instances where still wet signatures are required, but for the most part, everything can be done online, which is very convenient. Once that application is completed, many cases you will be required to complete an eMed. And what this is an electronic medical form. It's a questionnaire where you are really answering health questions, family health history, and this is typically done online. However, some companies require or prefer that you do this over the phone with one of their representatives. So for example, Guardian, for the most part, does this all online. MassMutual sometimes does it online, sometimes wants to conduct a phone interview. Depends really on the size of the policy here. And we can always give you a heads up on this as well. Now, in respect to underwriting, additional forms can be required. And it depends on a number of circumstances, really your circumstances. The first thing that may or may not be required is financials. Now, in respect to financials, what I mean when I say this is when it comes to underwriting, underwriters are going to look at your overall health. Will this person be approved? Will they get a preferred rating? But then they will also look at your financials. How much are you looking to allocate toward the policy to hyper grow your cash value? What does the death benefit look like? All of that important stuff. But in respect to the financials, at times, they will require something like this, a personal financial supplement, which is really just you providing detailed information. It's not super detailed, but you'll see how it's broken down here. Detailed information on your financials. For example, what is my salary? And this could also be deemed as earned income. Then what's my bonus? Now, if you are completing this form and you say, okay, I have a salary of $100,000, but I own a business and I take out a $500,000 owner distribution, you could put that under bonus and then just let your primary agents know or our case management department. This way, when we prepare the financial supplement or when we send it to underwriting, we'll let them know that this bonus here is actually classified as a owner distribution. This way, the more transparency they have, they say, okay, thank you for that information, and there's no back and forth, no questions there. But we see other questions, interest and dividend, other income, that could be real estate income. If we have other income there, we do want to specify it. And if you look at the form and say, well, where do I put it on the form? Like there's nowhere to put it here. I felt like that a million times with this kind of stuff. You can just email your agent or our case management department. Really what the underwriter is looking for here, we've got a breakdown of our assets and liabilities, is once everything's completed and we sign off, that you, the potential policyholder, are validating this and then providing everything up front so they can determine, okay, is the amount of life insurance, the total death benefit, suitable for this individual? And also the amount of money they plan on paying into the policy, is that suitable based on their income? And then also a breakdown of their assets as well. So if this is required, it is always coming from underwriting, or if you're applying for a large policy and we know that underwriting is going to ask for it, often we will send this to you in advance as well. But we only do this when it's required or we know it's going to be required. Some additional forms here. We see if you're a pilot in the military, maybe something else, or you're about to travel, if you have planned travel within the next 2 years, for example. There are additional forms that underwriting will require. If you're in the military, for example, they want to know your rank and your specific duties. For example, will you be in combat and are you a high risk for the insurance company? Or are you an engineer and behind a computer all day where they view that as no risk? Do you plan on going to other countries, or can you be sent to other countries, which could be a high risk from an insurance company's perspective? That's the kind of stuff they're looking at there. And of course, if you have questions, let us know. Your primary agent, our case management department, myself, will be able to assist here. Then we see possible medical exam. So a medical exam where a nurse comes out to conduct a medical exam, which is typically blood, urine, checks your height and weight, and asks several medical questions consistent with the EMED. This is sometimes required. If it's a larger policy, over a $3 million death benefit, it almost always will be required. If it is a smaller policy, for example, if you are under the age of 50, with some companies like Guardian, they will state you may have to go through a medical exam, but you may not. What they may require is an EMED, where you answer all of the questions online. They'll also mail you a kit to conduct a mouth swab, which actually when you take that mouth swab, then you mail it back, they want you to take a selfie, a picture of yourself. This way they know that it's actually you taking that swab, and then text that or email it to us. We then send it to Guardian, they receive your kit, and then they say, okay, based on the saliva test, there's no health issues here. I know, right? What insurance has become today with these tests and such. But a possible medical exam may or may not be required. It really depends on the amount here. And if it's a small policy, you complete the EMED and the company or underwriter sees that you've had some health issues in the past, or they just look at everything and say, you know what, we'd like this person to go through a medical exam where a nurse comes to your house, meets you at work, wherever is most convenient for you. They may require that. So of course, we always try and keep things convenient for you, but if it is required, we will let you know. Medical records. So to set expectations properly here, this underwriting process can be the most frustrating thing for everyone that we work with, including ourselves, because we can submit your policy to underwriting and have an approval within a few days. We've had it within 24 hours sometimes, but then it can take several months. We've had cases that have taken 9 to 12 months just to get an approval. And if anything is going to hold up that approval, it's typically this: the company requesting medical records from your primary doctor, or perhaps a specialist you've seen. That specialist could be recent, it could be from 10 years ago, and they have a hard time tracking down the records. If the company needs or wants to see medical records to ensure that your health is perfectly fine, maybe you had cancer 15 years ago, you saw a specialist, they're going to require the records from that specialist. They want to review them, see what your follow-up looked like, see how your health is now. That's the kind of stuff they're looking for. And if it takes a long time to get a hold of those records, or we have to keep on following up with the doctor's office to get those records, that is a case where the underwriting process can be delayed. On average, based on our statistics, we have found that the average case falls anywhere in this range, 2 to 6 weeks. But again, with that said, we've had cases that have been approved well under a week and some that take almost a year. So we always want to be prepared for that. And of course, we're going to work with you and keep you updated all the way through. Now, I do want to add this. If it's a long case that, say, takes a year for an approval, although this is very rare, this happens sometimes, if this is a case, we can always backdate the policy. This way you don't feel like, hey, I've got this money, I'd like to get it into the policy so it starts to go to work for me. We can always backdate a policy. This way you're not being punished for the underwriters or the insurance company's delays or your doctor's delays in getting the records over. We can save time, meaning if you start a policy with a policy date in January and you're starting in June, your policy date is still January, which is beautiful. So you don't have to feel like, hey, the money's sitting here in my bank account doing nothing. I like to get it in and get things going. Backdating helps save time in that respect. Most important thing, info upfront. If you're able to provide any and all information upfront, when I say that is if you had any type of health issue or health history, anything in the past that you might view as, hey, it's not a health issue at all. For example, probably something like 4 or 5 years ago, I can't even remember now, I had LASIK done. Now that does not impact medical underwriting at all. However, if I disclose that to an underwriter, that is in my best interest, that I'm being transparent with everything. They will want to see that kind of stuff. LASIK, not necessarily, but at the same time, it's a small detail that I definitely want to provide, because if they see that I had some type of surgery in my APS, attending physician statement, my medical records, and it wasn't detailed enough that it was LASIK, it just said eye surgery, they're going to question it. What was this? We'd like to see the records, and that can cause some delay there for LASIK, like eye surgery. My point is if we've had any type of health history, whether it was a medical procedure that was necessary or elective, it is good to be upfront with that. Just from experience, it helps prevent any type of delay. Same thing with any past history, if we've had health history in the past. And then what we will do is continue to update you, follow up accordingly, and we may have questions. Our case management department always tries to satisfy underwriters' requests based on the information you provided us through your questionnaire. But if something comes up, if they ask a question about your health history, our case management department or your primary agent will reach out. Sometimes there's a lot of back and forth. We always try and prevent that to keep things convenient for you. But at the same time, if it's required and we can't work around it, we will reach out. So this is part 1 of underwriting. Hopefully this just provides some additional information as far as what is or what may be required on your end. We're going to hit part 2 next, which will be a bit more fun. See you there.